Mr. President, I ask to speak on a different topic and be placed in a separate part of the record.
Without objection.
Mr. President, it was 10 years ago, roughly, when the inauguration of Barack Obama took place. It meant a lot to me. He was my colleague in the Senate for a number of years. He was my friend. I endorsed him for president. I was the first senator to endorse him, and for 14 months, I was the only senator who endorsed him. I traveled to Iowa many times to campaign for him as president. And of course, I remember that glorious cold, cold day when he took the oath of office out here on the steps of the Capitol. It was cold, but there were huge crowds. I'll never forget it. I was lucky enough, being in the Senate and a friend of his, to be on the platform when he took the oath of office. And when my friend Barack Obama reached his hand over and put it on the Bible of Abraham Lincoln to take his oath of office, I was witnessing, along with America, a moment in history I never dreamed of. It meant a lot to many other people, too. There was a school class in Chicago that decided to send out the students in their band and to march and to honor the new president. They were as proud of him as I was, maybe more so. It was an African-American school class, and it included in its ranks a young lady named Hydea Pendleton. After she witnessed that swearing in, she went back to Chicago. Sadly, 2 weeks later, she was senselessly shot down and killed on the South Side. She was 15 years old. President Obama's wife, Michelle Obama, came to her funeral in Chicago to honor this wonderful little girl, young girl, who came to that Capitol to be part of history and only lived a few weeks afterwards. Friday would have been Hydea Pendleton's 26th birthday. I joined community members in Chicago at a violence prevention center called BUILD. The people I spoke to were united, not only in wearing orange to signify their unity, but in sharing the belief that we've got to do more to protect our communities from gun violence. In the more than 10 years since Hydea was killed, America's crisis of gun violence has gone progressively worse. Today, gunfire is the #1 killer of America's children. Think about that for a second. Gun violence, the #1 killer of America's children today, of all the things they face in life. 1 in 5 Americans now say they've lost a loved one to gun violence. 1 in 5. Many Americans say they live in fear of sending their kids to school, or the local grocery store, or church, that they'll become targets of the next mass shooting. Last weekend, sadly, at least 46 people were shot in the city of Chicago during the weekend. 10 died. This includes a horrific mass shooting in the Austin neighborhood where 7 people were shot and 1 died, just blocks away from where the new mayor lives. Some politicians claim, well, that's part of American life. We have to accept it. I think they're wrong. And nearly 90% of Americans who support new gun safety laws agree it's time for Congress to do something. That is why it is unbelievable to me, having served in this body for a number of years, that this week the Senate Republicans want to take us backwards and weaken an existing gun law, one that has been on the books since 1934, almost 90 years. The National Firearms Act. Congress passed this law almost 90 years ago to set strict rules around particularly dangerous firearms, like machine guns, sawed-off shotguns, and short-barreled rifles. But right now, the Republican effort on the floor wants to wipe away a regulation from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives that restricts devices that can convert pistols into short-barreled rifles. The device is known as a stabilizing brace. When you attach one to a pistol, you can hold the weapon against your shoulder to fire it. It's accurate like a rifle, but easily concealable like a handgun. That is exactly why, for almost 90 years, short-barreled rifles have been regulated in the United States. This kind of weapon is still being used. It was used by the mass shooter who killed 9 people and injured 17 others in Dayton, Ohio in 2019. and by another mass shooter in Boulder, Colorado in 2021 who killed 10 people. Now ask yourself, is this what America needs in the year 2022 or 2023? Weakening gun laws that have been on the books since Franklin Roosevelt was president? Making it easier to conceal short-barreled rifles in your handbag or backpack? Absolutely not. But this Republican proposal, at this moment of gun violence and bloodshed in America, would make it easier for mass shooters and criminals to access these dangerous weapons. Under the ATF rule, gun owners have a number of ways to comply. They can take the brace off their pistol or put a longer barrel on it, but they cannot have a short-barreled rifle without being subject to regulations from that 1934 National Firearms Act, which included registration and limits on transfers. The ATF's regulation on pistol braces is just common sense. More importantly, it will save lives. The only question is, why are the Republicans bringing this up at this moment in our history? Why? Is it for the gun lobby or for the American people?